good afternoons, and good mornings, depending on where you are dialing in from. Thank you all for dialing in today. We've got a lot of participants joining. I think we should give them a minute more just so we can have everybody get started with us. Thank you all for making time. So the plan today is to walk through some of the very specific AI use cases relating to the engineering assurance and compliance. So what we do is we will be going through a couple of slides to set the context, and then we've got a small live session, and we could take question and answers towards the end. Yeah. What we try and do is we'll keep all the question and answers to the end, but feel free to post your Q&As on the Q&A sections herein, and that kind of allows us to get through all of the questions. We'll get through the discussions in about half an hour, 40 minutes, gives us about 20-25 minutes for providing responses to the questions. And we can't get through all of them. We will certainly get through the questions with responses and circulate them across to all of you participants. Yeah. Thank you very much. So I can see we've got quite a lot of people online. Maybe we'll get started with introductions and we'll have our team. Okay. So a little bit about myself. I come from the industry, got about 25 years of EPC experience across various industries globally. I have worked in Malaysia for a period of time as part of a multinational organization. We had engineering center in Malaysia. We had at the time over 250 engineering capacity in Malaysia. My role in businesses have been predominantly business systems and project controls. So I have been part of realizing the pain that businesses go through with regards to getting transparency, getting productivity. And since joining Wrench a couple of years now, we've been focused on trying to bring AI and help our customers get the best out of the electronic document management systems, project management systems. Yeah. To set the context for today's webinar, I mean, the challenge today is technical reviews. They are becoming tougher because complexity of projects are increasing. The timeline is shrinking. The partnering models are also getting complex. So you would have typically a client and an engineering entity, but now you have design authorities involved, a PMC is involved. Review cycles therefore become more rigorous, and having the opportunity to tap into an agentic AI to speed up the process, make it more consistent, is what we would be looking at today. If you look at the technology as well, it's matured over the last maybe 3 years to a point where it's becoming very accessible to the industry. And with technology such as AI, there's always the fear of information being put out there on the public domains. And that's the space where within Wrench, we've been able to help resolve that challenge. Yeah. So the discussion today will be around how we've been deploying air-gapped AI technology, where the AI component is completely ring-fenced. It's sitting within the instance of the clients or the customers yourself. And in that space, how AI is able to provide that support. And today's discussion will be very focused on how technical reviews, engineering compliance is being handled. Yeah. So the use cases today we look at is how AI is being trained on the project requirements, the standards, contract, scope of work. And then we go on to look at how AI would now carry out a compliance check on a technical document. And as a component after that, we would look at how revision comparisons across revision A, revision B of a drawing is supported with AI. Now, before we kind of dive into the discussion today, the context of today's discussion as I presented would present various challenges to all of us participants here. So I'd like to maybe help get bearings right on the right challenges that are being faced, or the key challenges that are being faced by yourselves. I'd like our organizing team to help post a poll. Helen, please, if you can post the poll, we'll get the feedback. We'll open it for maybe a minute and a half. We'll see how many of participants have responded, and then we'll take our discussion to mostly focus on the challenges that are being faced by yourself. Yeah. So as you can see there are 5 questions. Just pick the one that jumps out at you. What is your burning issue? What is the biggest challenge that you would like to see resolved with the help of AI? And the context is what we discussed in our previous slide. And a lot of times it's we're trying to get the review cycles shortened, and that happens because AI is able to optimize the consistencies of the comments being picked up. So if all of the comments are picked up, then review cycles are reduced. If the productivity is improved, then you can get more work done with the same number of resources. The same goes with consistency of the quality of the commenting, managing the requirements themselves, which could keep growing as scopes of work get extended. So staying on top of all of that might be a challenge that you're facing. Maybe it's closing reviews and comments and making sure all the actions have been addressed. That might be the key area. Excellent. Oh, interesting. So you can see there on your screen as well, review cycles taking too long is the biggest challenge. And I think that's something we suspected as well. But interestingly, managing compliances with contract and standards is the next highest item. So those are the 2 key areas we will focus on today. So we are on point with what we will be discussing today. Thank you. Let's maybe begin the journey by establishing what the current challenges are, right? So if I go back to my experience, like I mentioned, working with a large national oil company in the region, we had about 250 engineers. But in spite of the best of the processes we have, we had also implemented an electronic document management system. But in spite of all of that, we had to manage the tighter schedules with the turnarounds. And also we had retention concerns, key experienced engineers. We had, to manage with the newer engineers coming in, which is a necessity in the industry. We have to bring the new engineers, train them up. But then again, if you look at the work scopes as well, we're doing work with Shell standards. We're doing work across the globe today. So we might have to deal with the Middle East ADNOC standards. We may have more stakeholders, like I mentioned, the design authorities involved, PMCs are involved. And the sheer volume of documents, there used to be a time when we had feeds with a set of deliverables that are probably getting double, triple in terms of the volume itself. Because as a philosophy in the industry, the design space is where the focus is now. So you get the design in a space where most of the requirements have been addressed before it moves into a commitment on procurement and construction. So the timeline shrinks, but the sheer volume of details on engineering is also growing. Yeah. So if you look at traditional review process, we try and establish how that happens. And, this is something we all kind of relate with. So before we dive in, typically we are looking at getting a document in, the engineer is reviewing the document. They've got to now mark them up. Traditionally, you would mark them up with a highlighter on a printed copy. But today, you've got to do that on PDF copies or an online reviewer. There's time spent in drawing up the clouds, typing up the comments, creating the notations, and then it needs to go onto a common resolution sheet, a common response sheet, and then it needs to be submitted to the party who's prepared the document. It comes back with the responses, and the engineers got to review it again and then mark up additional comments that have not been incorporated, and finally you get to approval. Yeah. The pain points, if you look at it, predominantly, I think we all would agree, like you mentioned there as well, it's the human fatigue. There's also the element of repeated checking of the same work again and again. And there is a huge dependency on the reviewer themselves, identifying on the drawing within the document, the comments that were made. And as we mentioned, we've got to keep up that knowledge within the business as well. That gaps in knowledge might lead to certain comments being overlooked. There's also the traceability. We need to be able to pinpoint why a certain comment is being made and the reference being made to the specific standards or specific scope of work component of the contract. So all of that is very time consuming. And as you rightly pointed out, it's something that takes a lot of time. So how do we shrink that timeline? Yeah. So we look at a scenario. So what we'd be looking at today is our technical reviewer, which is a solution that Wrench has implemented in the industry. And what you see there is just an introduction to the live demo that we're about to see. So you're able to follow through. Engineering teams are initially making all the required standards, the contracts, the project specifications are all within the electronic document management system that AI has access to, based on which AI develops its understanding. Yeah. Once that understanding is developed, AI then performs the repetitive cycle with precise audit trails of where that comment trail is being picked up and enables the engineer to approve. So we're talking about intelligent reviews with AI enabling the engineer. So it's not AI replacing anybody here. It's really helping the process. So what does the AI do here? It does the compliance checking. It does the extraction of the requirements from within the scope documents. It identifies deviations that are on the technical documents, and then it goes on and annotates like an engineer would do. What does the engineer do here? The human part of the role, which is the subject matter expert validating what AI has stated, decision making of whether a comment is really applicable or not, and then it goes on to the cycle of doing the approval. That's really what we're going to be looking at today. We've also got the second scenario where obviously the standards apply, but the second scenario is going to be looking at revision A of, we're going to take an example of a closed range system PNID, and we look at the comment resolution sheet. We then see how AI has prepared an AI review report where it's going to present its findings in 3 blocks, as changes mentioned in the CRS of revision A has not been done on revision B. Section 2 would show what additional changes have been done on revision B, but AI is not able to find a requirement being specified in the submission of revision A and the CRS that went with it. And third section obviously will be voluminous section where all the changes that has been noted has been made within the document as well. So you will also see how AI is actually annotated the document. So this is what we are expecting to see in today's session. Yeah. So a few words on the architecture and how the process actually is being designed to be executed within the environment. Yeah. So as the engineer responsible, you are in control. AI is available for assistance only. All the learning is human guided. So what that means is we are not going to start with a knowledge set that might not be applicable to your specific industry or organization. So we will start as a small baby would start. The AI has no knowledge. It has the ability to learn, and it will learn what is in your organization's data set, and that would be utilized for all the commenting and deviation detection. Yeah. And the second most important component here is your data remains secure. So we mentioned in the beginning itself, all the data, all of the learnings is maintained within your premises or your ring-fenced environment. And That's the context with which we'd be looking at how AI goes through learning the requirements, doing the compliance assessment, creating the annotations, the engineer obviously then validating, and the loop back is also important. Yes, so the engineer's done the validation. AI now learns from the human in the loop cycle. So it learns from what the engineer has done with the comments AI has presented to the users. Let's get into the demo. So I'm just going to go through the demo and talk you through what's happening on the screen here. So we spoke about the standards. So the standards are accessed from the EDMS. We're going to be looking at a flare blowdown philosophy document. You just introducing the icons there. So you've got a review, and now we've opened up the compliance summary. The summary states, let's just look at one example, page 34. It's made a reference to a standard based on which it's identified a potential deviation. Yes. So if you go on to this interface, this is a Foxit interface. It's a collaborative interface. Multiple human users are also in that space. I've clicked and filtered AI's comments. The same comment that we looked at in the summary, it's picked up the statement, it's identified the standard, and it's also then given you a reference to the specific page of the standard that refers to the requirement to be incorporated. Yeah. The consolidation can happen in that same environment. AI can help to the CRS. And we also have an AI chat available here where users can go and ask questions around that document. This could be a 600-page document. Yeah. So you could utilize that as well. We'll go on to the second scenario here. That's the PNID document, revision A. Let's just very quickly open out the CRS here, common response sheet. You can see lots of comments have been made here, and we go on and look at revision B. Now in revision B, let's look at the summary that AI has created, and that's the CRS. So the response says contractors said accepted, 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 and for some of them they've said noted. Now if we go back to the document itself, let's open the document in the interface. Sorry, this is the review report. Yeah, so just look at the review report. You can see the section 1 talks about changes mentioned in the CRS, but you can't see that on revision B. Section 2 talks about changes that are done in addition, and that note there says that the engineer should validate it. And then you've got all of the different comments that was on the CRS with an identifier, and we'll open the document now. And as you can see there, let's open the interface here. You see the notations there are aligned with what is on the review report. So AI's comment 1.1 is marked up with the coordinate on the drawing as well. So these three don't have particular reference to an item. So it's an earthing notation that is looking for, doesn't find it specifically. So here you can see the level indicators have got a comment on it, and that would be the comment that you can see here as well. So as you can see, the interface allows for AI to go and create the markups, and also in the comment space, engineers would be able to accept this comment, edit the comment. You can see the overlay. You can see how revision A changes have been picked up by AI, and that's the revision B, how the changes look like on the document itself. Yeah. So like we mentioned, the comment would be then annotated and edited by the users. You also have the AI access here, and where you have an ad hoc file to be reviewed, you can drop that in here as well. Yeah. So that's really a very quick overview of what the functional features of that application is. Now, what we'd like to do now is just make sure that we've talked about what was feedback in the poll. We talked about reducing time, and as you can see, it typically takes days for multidiscipline individual human users to go through a set of PNIDs and start marking up, because they have relationships from the document to the items, data sheets, the design briefs, and the engineers are required to go through all of that, and there will be multiple disciplines involved as well. So it takes days typically to do a review of a full set of PNIDs, and AI could actually help bring that down to a couple of hours. especially because the platform also provides a collaborative environment where you could host a session, all the users come in, they look at the comments already made by AI. You've seen there's about 19 comments that were there, all done and marked up. So in normal circumstances, traditionally, different discipline engineers will have to go and check for each of those 19, identify them on the drawings, and then check against them on the CRS and mark them off. So reducing time is a definite obvious win for AI-supported technical reviews. Manually marking up is something that would take not the engineering skills, but for people to have to go and use the computer to go select the space, identify the coordinate, put a cloud in, and put their comment, type their comment in. All that manual marking up is now being automated to start with. There will be obviously more comments to be made, which AI may have not put on there, and the users still have the option to do that. But the majority of the deviations have already been marked up, and that's where we get the time advantage. The consistencies of the reviews is something human dependent, experience dependent. With the AI supporting the cycle, it becomes standardized, and that really helps because it builds credibility for the organization as well. What goes through multiple cycles of reviews can now be reduced as well with that standardization. Traceability is another advantage. We've seen the summary document that we've looked at has a specific reference to the standard, is hyperlinked. You can click on it, it goes to that standard. Where you have cross references to data sheets or design documents elsewhere, AI provides that hyperlink as well. And you also have access to the AI chat interface, the natural language interface, we call it the analyzer. You could ask for any document to be withdrawn there as well. And that helps that speed up, and also it helps ensure there's traceability down to the contract scope of work. And that goes without saying. The specific requirements of the contract is what you need to make sure is adhered to, which sometimes takes an order of precedence over what might be stipulated in the international standards. And the AI is knowledgeable in its training to apply that order of precedence appropriately and mark up the deviations in accordance with that. Yeah. Now, it's a given the high effort that the traditional review process entails has been significantly reduced where you have an AI technical reviewer as an agent supporting the process. Yeah. So the key takeaways we're looking to achieve through here: automated compliance validation. So we've seen from the first case that we looked at, AI is able to identify deviations on, we looked at a philosophy document, that could be any technical document, and the deviations are identified, marked up. It speeds up the process and improves consistency, because as the users start interacting with AI, the organization standard as well gets looped in, and therefore the reviews become more consistent, the quality of the process improves, and thereby improves credibility of this cycle as well. The drawing annotation and comment generation is something that AI is able to do for you. So it generates its reasoning as to why a certain deviation has been identified, both on drawings as well as documents. It's able to create that annotation on the PDF layer. And that example we looked at was on a Foxit interface, which is part of the Wrench EDMS, where collaborative platform allows multiple users to come in. And in this example we looked at today, the AI assistant was identified as a user as well. And what's important here as well is in the review cycle, we've made sure in that process of doing the reviews, the consolidation of comments is only possible when all the drawing annotations made by AI has been accepted by a human user. And that ensures that AI's comments are not just passed through without due consideration by the humans. And also it creates the opportunity for AI to learn from it as the human in the loop cycle, as we call it. Improving auditability and assurance is something that everybody strives for, and I think it's there in the KPIs of most projects. Now, if you look at the comments that we looked at today, every comment AI has made was not a generative suggestion that AI has created on the page. It's identified exactly why and exactly where it's picked up the requirement. And in the case of the revision A, revision B, it's also identified the reference numbers of the CRS comment that it is used to identify the coordinate where that change is expected and has been made. Yeah, that improves the assurance, the quality assurance process as well. AI is designed to assist. So one of the questions we always get is AI being designed to do all of the comments that the humans would do? And that is not the intent. The intent, as you've seen here, is to try and give more quality assurance and use the human intellect the way it is being required. So the engineers would be doing the reviews, not just spending time doing the marking up and hunting for the coordinates where these changes are expected to have been made. Yeah. That brings us to the Q&A. We've got a lot of time left for Q&A. I mean, we've had these discussions earlier in another part of the world as well, and we were overwhelmed with questions. So we tried to go through a little bit quick with our discussion, and I think I'm expecting to see a lot of questions come through. I'm going to stop sharing my screen briefly so I can see the questions as they come in. Okay, so on the top of the webinar page, you could actually see Q&A. Feel free to type away your questions. I don't see any questions so far. Okay, so while we wait for questions from the team here, let me start with some of the questions that we had been faced with in our previous webinars on the same topic. Yeah, one of the questions we always get is the AI going to be implemented in a manner that it would expose the contract? And I think that's a common question. Everybody has that concern, especially because the technology, the intellectual property protection is key. And the architecture that Range has implemented on our AI use cases allows for all the information to be maintained within that frame of reference. So all of the knowledge is saved into the knowledge graph. And that's quite a differentiated approach that we've taken, in the sense we are not doing any LLM training, which I think is a common approach when it comes to doing AI. We've taken a very specific approach to ensure that we lean on knowledge extraction, creation of a knowledge graph, and we do use LLMs, but that LLM has the ability to extract information from the documents and also withdraw information from the knowledge graph and present it to the users. And that's really how we've constructed the use case for us. Yeah. So let me just bring up another slide while we wait for the questions to come in. I've got Sajid with me here as well. Is that a technology issue? Philippe, I think some of our participants are not able to access questions. We did run a test as well, and I'm not sure why we're not able to do that today. That's why we do these dry runs, but I suppose still a challenge. Let me bring up this slide in any case, and this must be, I'm sure this is one of the questions that everybody's trying to ask. I'm resharing my screen. So what we see here is the key considerations on data security that we have incorporated into our implementation. So no public AI model LLM training is involved. All the learnings are stored on a local knowledge graph, which is available for audits outside of the AI part as well. And security certified AI environment is part of the implementation. If we're doing an implementation on an Azure cloud instance, the LLM that we use also is session-wide. What that means is the LLM does not have any memory of what it's been asked to do, which improves the security part of the LLM's response. Yeah. Accuracy is the next key thing we spoke about. So with the knowledge graph and the LLM working together, we have precise, auditable, and repeatable results. And that's the most important thing that is required in a technical review. Trusted project-specific answers is what you're looking for, and it has to be context-aware. So industry-specific context awareness is part of the AI's learning because we have a very specific knowledge graph developed, and that development journey is also shorter in timeline when compared to doing a full LLM model training. So typically you would expect about 2 to 3 months of time before you get the AI to be very meaningfully providing responses after the test phase is done. Yeah. And the other question I think we talked about is the team's productivity enablement. AI is assisting, and the human in the loop is what we focus on with the design. Yeah, Wrench AI works alongside the technical experts. The teams are focused on the higher value outcomes. So the team would actually be doing the reviews, not just doing the repetitive tasks of finding coordinates and typing up information. Yeah. Obviously, all of that is focused on improving the decision making, reducing the manual efforts. Yeah. We still have question and answer challenges. I've got someone typing. I think the technology issue has been resolved. So please feel free to type away your questions. Okay. You should be able to type your questions. Yeah. So while the questions come in, one other thing I'd like to point out is the AI reviewer we talk about is not requiring a full-fledged project management system to be implemented. Yeah. All we are really looking to have is an electronic document management system. So with the technical reviewer, we've got other reviewers as well in the process of in the modules listing. The technical reviewer capability can be built on a base DMS of Wrench, which has the relationship defined. It has got workflows in there. It's got ability to collaborate within the team. So with the EDMS, you already have a very powerful system that allows you to speed up your review cycle. But with enablement of AI, it becomes more meaningful and I think more precise as what we've seen through today's discussions. Yeah. Helen's trying to post here, but I don't know whether users are still facing a challenge. Okay, so let me go on to the next question that typically comes up during our discussions. And hopefully I'll be addressing some of the questions that you've sent through as well. I really apologize for this technical snag. We did run a test, so no idea why we're having this issue here. Yeah. So another question that we typically get asked is, how long does it take for this AI technology to be implemented? So let's begin with getting your documents and data into an EDMS. That in itself is about 6 weeks that it takes for you to get your engineering processes onto an EDMS. And once it comes onto an EDMS, then from there we start building knowledge structure, because like we mentioned, the AI comes in with no knowledge to start with. It needs a clean set of data because we don't want to clutter the AI's knowledge graph. And so we start with, once we got key project information in the system, that allows for us to pick up that information and use that for the reviewer. So it takes about 3 months from when you have an EDMS and the project team already operating. So it's a migration of the project system or the behavior, rather than going through the manual cycles or the current business processes, even if you are using another system. Yeah. One other question we typically get, and especially with the context of today's challenges, or rather drive for most enterprises, you would already be embarking on an AI journey very likely. So the question we generally get asked is, can Wrench AI be connected to an existing or ongoing AI initiative of businesses? And that again is something that we have taken into consideration. Let me just share another slide that should come through in a minute.
Hi, sir.
Yes,
The meeting chat is turned on since the Q&A is not working. So now the Q&A questions can be typed on the chat, sir.
Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So what I think I understand is the Q&A module of this webinar session is having some challenges. So we can go ahead and start sharing questions in the meeting chat. All right, thanks. So there's questions coming through. Thank you very much. How does the AI ensure accuracy when reviewing technical documents and drawings against project specification, contract requirements, and engineering standards? So what we covered as part of our demo was a guardrail. Let me just share that slide once more. So okay, so go back a few slides. So what you're looking at is the guardrails, and the guardrails are part of your configuration as such. So in the EDMS, you will have loaded the project specifications, you will have loaded the contract as such, and you would also have the reference standards required for that particular field, concept, or EPC project. And AI would ingest this information, and then because they are called as guardrails, that's what AI keeps in its knowledge repository on one side. And then it takes the document that needs to be reviewed, and it applies the learnings that it has from here onto the comments that is being made onto the document. And that's how it's ensuring the mapping of the standards against the comment that is being made on to the document, be it a multi-page document as a report or a design brief, a design basis, or a drawing. So the next question, if I go on to, okay, so one of the things you're not able to see, you should be able to see the shared screen now. Dilip, can you confirm that? Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks. Can we integrate with existing AI tool? Now, I think I was going on to that question just before we kind of branched off. So yes is the answer. And the method we use to achieve that is an MCP layer, as the technology is referred to. Give me a moment. Let me bring up that slide so you can actually see what it is. It's a model context protocol is the today's norm used for AI to handshake intelligence across with each other. So some of our deployments are connecting Copilot that is running in the enterprise to be able to interact with the Wrench AI, and that in the exchange of the contextual intelligence is made possible using the MCP layer. Yeah, so the answer is yes. Our AI is able to connect to existing AI tools of an enterprise. Okay, I think that slide is now visible. I can see that on the shared screen as well. Yeah. Have this been already implemented in actual projects? Yes, all of our AI use cases in Wrench have been developed over the last 3 years, and we work closely with our customers. So the use cases have been developed as MVPs and proof of concepts in the early days, but the solution we looked at today and a number of other AI tools are already implemented in projects across a number of our customers today. Yeah. If you're using third-party LLM, how do you ensure our engineering documents are not used to train the foundation document, the foundation model? Yeah, I think That question is around the training methodology itself. And as I mentioned earlier, Wrench does not train our LLM. All the knowledge resides in the knowledge graph, and we utilize an LLM to do the translation service. So it still is used for ingesting documents and transferring the knowledge of the document into the knowledge graph. Once that is done, we do not need the LLM. And for that reason, we've done integrations with multiple LLMs. So we've used the Azure AI LLMs. We've connected to Claude. We've connected to Olama as a open source LLM as well that can be deployed on-premise, air-gapped from the public internet. What are the required hardware to run AI? Is this cloud-based or local-based? Does this need to run 24/7? Is the AI subscription based on a rate limited based like what current AI companies use? Okay, so Wrench, if I go back to a slide that we had looked at earlier. So if you look at EDMS, DMS, these are core offerings that Wrench have as part of our smart project stack. And they have a license structure as a named user license or concurrent user license. The same process is applied on the AI side as well. So you don't have to burn your AI licenses across all of your 300 engineers if that's your size of the organization. You could procure a limited set of AI licenses that can be utilized across the teams as need be. Now, license cost is one part of it, but then you also have, as you've mentioned earlier, one of our participants have suggested the LLM cost. If we are using an LLM, and that LLM could be your existing service that the enterprise has already subscribed for, and there will be a cost to that as well, which is not something that we could estimate today. That's really a function of the number of documents you have and the engagements you would have. So there is really components to the cost. One is the license, and then you have the storage, and then you have the LLM component as well in terms of tokens. Yeah. The next question. Oh, okay. So there's another question there. Does it need to run 24/7? No. And that's the other component, other factor that we've considered. So there is a processing pipeline, and AI consumes that information when the new document becomes available in the EDMS. It runs, translates, maintains the information in the knowledge graph. Once that knowledge is obtained, it's not going to consume any tokens, and until a person or one of the users would come in and ask a question, or you receive a new document that needs to be either consumed as a guardrail or as a commenting exercise to be done. So AI subscription, the AI token costs are only consumed as you do the operation and not all the time. Yeah. The other question we had based like other AI companies use. Okay, so when we talk about other AI companies, I'm going to draw a comparison to maybe Claude or let's just say Microsoft Azure AI. Most of these companies charge on the basis of the tokens being consumed. With Wrench, you have a little bit more control in the sense you have a knowledge graph that you can engage without the LLM once the knowledge graph has been produced. The LLM component, which is what most AI companies would charge on the basis of, is very flexible because that is something you would only consume when you ask a question, like we mentioned in the previous response. Yeah. So the charging mechanism or the cost to your company is going to be on the basis of how much knowledge are you converting, and that's a one time, and then how many users are engaging in question and answers with the AI. So the consumption of documents and then questions being asked. Yeah. The next question down is from, can the AI track review comments, contractor response, previous markups to ensure proper comment closure and auditability? Yes, and that is the example we looked at today, where there was marked up revision A with a common resolution that went into AI. It has not converted that into knowledge. Using that knowledge, it's gone ahead and marked up the revision B and produced another CRS for you to then go through and close it systematically. And you have the audit trail as well, with every comment having a number, and every comment with a standard that needs to be referenced also has a reference point there. So everything is audit trailed. In relation to the next question, so in relation to what you were explaining about guardrails, how do you reduce the AI's tendency to hallucinate? Oh, very good question there, yeah. So AIs hallucinate when you have the generative capability of AI being utilized, yeah. So in the context that we're discussing here, we are converting the information into a knowledge graph, and you're merely retrieving precisely what is in that knowledge graph. So it allows for AI to be very tight and very precise in what it points at. I'm going back on the slide to a point where you could actually see the comment sheet here. And what you see here has been extracted from the CRS, and it is not being generated by AI in any manner whatsoever. Yeah. What it has also done is gone and identified the objects on the drawing. So it knows that's an alarm, it knows that's a level indicator, and it knows that's a nozzle. And because it's trained with the notations of the drawings, it is also able to precisely point at what it's looking at. Now, hallucination typically happens when you are requiring AI to predict something, for it to generate something out of its own understanding. And with the context of the uses that we have described here, AI does precise withdrawal of information and knowledge, retrieval of that from the knowledge graph. And that's where we are able to keep the AI to a very tight level of accuracy and traceability. Yeah. Track comments. Okay, we talked about that in what you were explaining about guardrails. We spoke about that as well in terms of hallucination. The next question here is, has this already been implemented in a live project? We answered that question earlier. Yes. If yes, maybe know the feedback from that. Will it be a good case study to see the pros and cons? Absolutely. And I think today's discussion, we have presented a few or two use cases. In live project scenarios, the complexity is a little broader and the learnings of the AI also grows. We've currently shown you the marking up of comments on the basis of the CRS. In a live project scenario, our AI's learning extends to the datasheet information. So you go to another use case, reference set point identified on a relief valve was picked up by AI as being misaligned with what it said on that relief valve's datasheet. So it's not limited to the guardrails that you have set up initially. It goes into approved data sheets. It goes into the approved vendor documents as well to cross-check comparison or validation of that, because it's able to identify the nozzle number, or the valve on that nozzle, and the valve's tag number. So it's a much broader environment. AI is able to go into that environment, get that information available to the engineers for them to make an informed decision. Yeah. The next question there is, EPCProjects normally has a long life cycle. Does the app retain context inferred from previous stages so that there is continuity in the workflow and not having to tell it to check history? Absolutely, it does. Yeah. So the contextual grounding is key for engineering reviews, because you can't let AI get very broad understanding of everything that is going on. All what you see here has an order of precedence, clearly identifying the projects themselves, and the context are locked into the knowledge graph, and that's how AI is able to maintain that as it goes through the project life cycle. So approval of the data sheet would then drive feedback from that approved document. It doesn't need to go back and check it again, because that relationship is already defined in the knowledge graph. Yeah. Regarding IP, will Wrench be signing NDA if required by our client? Absolutely. And I think it goes at this point to be stated that Wrench does not have access or does not utilize any of the project data for training our AI. AI is being designed to be self-learning. The knowledge graph as well is a property of the company. So you would retain that knowledge within your company. So Wrench is merely facilitating the opportunity for you to utilize the platform, and we do not take any data outside your environment for any sort of training of our AI because it's not built around that principle at all. And we will sign the NDA, and that's part of the onboarding process always. Yeah. Will there be any pilot run at the start or any audit on this AI during the project run to ensure it's really assisting or becoming another external pain point? That way it is ensured. What way it is ensured? Okay, good question there. Yeah. So typical life cycle, if you look at it, would be implementing the electronic document management system, enabling the users to come into that environment, start utilizing the available tools to do the reviews, making information available in that environment, configuring it with the required security protocols so that the right people have access to the right information. Wrench Smart Project is a collaborative environment, which means your subcontractors, your vendors, all of the project stakeholders are operating in that environment in an ideal scenario. And they all have access to just the information they are allowed to have access to. In that context, the AI's knowledge graph is started with 0, and then as it starts growing, we have periodic audit mechanisms established to ensure that the knowledge graph is being developed in the right sequence and it's not getting cluttered. AI has a self-learning loop. That self-learning is maintained in a separate tagged and labeled section. So during the SME audits of the knowledge graph, you are able to then approve them. Even while it has self-learned elements and AI brings that information to you, it would identify that this is an information I've learned from documents beyond the audit that I've had in the past. So audited information will be presented more authoritatively. What learning has happened beyond that point, AI would present it as a self-learning so that the user can now make a decision on whether this is to be accepted or not. And when the users accept it, AI will take that into higher confidence levels, so it's able to present it back to the users in the next cycle. Yeah. In terms of, will there be a pilot run at the start of any audit on AI? So typically, like I mentioned, the process of implementing AI has got audit points within it to ensure that the AI is performing to the required level of consistency before you put it live. But again, there will be periodic audits planned on the actual uses of the AI. And that's something I think every AI implementation today takes into account because it's still quite an expensive affair and there needs to be value for the money being spent. So that process will be part of the life cycle. Yeah. Since each project is different in nature, while fundamental remain the same, but the site nuances may vary, which may be witnessed for the first time in the project. Since Wrench is a generative AI based off the data shared, how will the tool handle and address these exceptions? All right. Firstly, I think I would correct that or calibrate that to say the AI tool is not a generative AI tool. It's not learning it through trial and error. It's learning from precise information that's been picked up in the context of this given project. And that's why you could start using this tech reviewer on one project. You don't need to have many projects to train the AI to understand the context, because with one project, it would still be able to add value with the context that it is learning from that given project's scope of work. And it has also got access to the collaborative environment where all of the comments are coming in and issues are being reported. and the approval cycles are being identified. It is also recording the time it takes for the reviews to happen. So it's also optimizing the rework when it identifies repeated comments coming through. So there's a lot of learning happening as it goes. But in terms of the generative component, we do not have as much generative as you would expect in a typical LLM scenario. We do have a component where AI is going to identify and generate a statement that it would put onto the drawing, which is generated by AI. But that is again done in the context of the project with a very limited set of data that it has got access to. I hope I've answered that question there. Yeah. And you've also mentioned how will it address the exceptions? The exceptions are what it's learning from. So those exceptions of a given project will be identified, especially if you have a deviation approval already for a given project, might not be applicable for another project that is running concurrently. And in the environment where you have all the project information, it would already learn that you have a deviation approval on this project to use a different material, probably because of certain exceptions in timeline, maybe, or whatever the client is approved to use. Yeah. Can AI track and review comments, contractor response, previous markup? Yes, I've answered that question earlier. It can certainly identify comments of all of the different revisions and versions, and it can take that into its knowledge set and help you stay on top of that audit trail to close out the comments in a systematic manner. How does the system handle conflicting revisions or multiple versions of engineering documents when performing compliance validation? Excellent question. And I think Wrench as a platform, EDMS platform, has got a very strong revision version management protocol, which allows for AI as well to honor those revision version management protocols. And if by any chance there is a reverting back to some information that might create a conflict, order of precedent is what AI would follow when it provides you advice. The next safety checkpoint is AI is only going to give you a recommendation with a reference point. So the users still have the option or the responsibility rather to make sure that they're making the correct choices from what the AI is proposing. Yeah. As mentioned earlier, can we use this AI features to a small select project as a phase? Absolutely, and that's the right way to start. You may be running many projects, but the best way to start is to move one project data into the knowledge graph, set up the relationships and that knowledge graph structure with the ontology in a manner that is aligned with the industry that you work in. So if it's a water industry or if you're working in the energy industry, there might be certain nuances that needs to be considered as part of the implementation. The best way to start is with one project. And as you grow confidence, you can bring another project in once one project information has been ingested and the process has been rolled out. Yeah. Does this work with manually scanned drawings? Okay, good question. And I appreciate that question as well, because the review capability of the AI has been enabled on PDF documents. The reason we've done that is because in Wrench, we have a tool that automatically converts a large number of file formats into PDF. Now, having said that, digital conversion will have better resolution and thereby AI's ability to identify the objects correctly. Scanned documents, scanned drawings does work, but it's still like even a human requires it to be of a reasonable level of clarity for them to understand whether it's the check valve directions need to be clear. Otherwise, it's not possible to read it. So there is a limitation with the vision tools to be able to identify drawings that are scanned and have less resolution clarity. Yeah. The next question is, can it track and review? We are almost on time, and I apologize for the slight delay in getting to the Q&A. We've got about 4 or 5 more questions to go through. I'll try and go through all of them. And, thank you all for being part of today's journey. Those who can stay on, please feel free to stay on. We're not going to close the session. I'll go through all of the questions as much as I can. The next question is, can it track and review design in every stage of project? Yes. In the first revision, I could follow the design standards, but in the later revisions, due to construction limitation, etc., I have to change the design. Will it track the change in design and acknowledge that the deviation is accepted? So within the Wrench EDMS, we have a design change control process. So if you have prepared a drawing which has gone into the release stage and it then goes into a change, there will already be a design change being requested and that being approved through that cycle, and our AI can actually see that. If there is a change happening without the design change approval, AI will notify you that you have made a change to a released document, and that is not acceptable. So you have to respect the business process as well to ensure that the DCN process is in place and is available for AI to look at, and that's how AI is able to keep its audit trail on how a design got it to a release stage and why the change happened and what is the impact of that change in all the different documents or deliverables that will come through. Can AI be used for tender evaluation? Yes, we have a very specific AI module for bid analysis. We will plan a demo separately in another webinar to come shortly. But again, feel free to reach out to us and we can talk to you separately about that specific requirement. It was not included in today's presentation in the webinar. If contractor doesn't want to use AI due to in-house tools, but client or PMC is interested to use in a particular project, will there be any integration issues or mismatch of these review tools during the project lifecycle between all of the project stakeholders? Now, the collaborative environment is Smart Project. Whether you deploy AI or enable AI for that specific user, you have control to do that. The knowledge graph as well, you can point at what you want AI to learn from. So you are absolutely in control of how you want AI to help you deliver success on the project. So the answer to that is yes. We have an MCP protocol that allows for you to integrate with various AI tools. We also have APIs for data exchange if that is another requirement. For example, you want to integrate with CMMS system, BIM models. Those integrations are also possible in terms of the tag numbers and tag details being passed on. Yeah. Do we need multiple of these AIs for different projects, since it's only learning based on project by project? Okay. Oh, that's interesting. So the learning is holistic. The instruction for AI to use the learning is specific. So it could learn from all of the different projects, but when it's commenting on a given project, it honors the stage of that project and it honors the approval that you have for that specific project. And that's what I meant when we talked about specific projects. Yeah, the knowledge graph is one composite knowledge graph where all the information is maintained. Okay. Whether any project-specific milestones or project engineering KPIs can be tailored to use in this AI to be project-specific. Yes, absolutely. You could have very project-specific milestones being mapped. And the analyzer that we spoke about is another tool that is available to track project schedules. The EDMS module allows you to integrate schedules as well. It's not in the context of today's discussion, but again, like I said, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be more than happy to take you through the other AI capabilities of Wrench Smart Projects. Is the company GDPR SOC 2 ISO 27001 certified? Yes. We are going through the SOC 2. I think we should have the paperwork cleared in a couple of weeks. So for all intents here, we are certified all of the requirements that you've mentioned there. What all files can be read, like, so RenSmart Project is an EDMS, a very capable EDMS platform that can take any file formats into it, including 3D models. So, and you mentioned XCR files there. So we do have a Primavera integration where the schedule can be connected to the deliverables. So as a platform, RenSmart Project allows for you to connect large number of file formats across for the AI's consumption. So XCR is not directly consumed by the AI for this particular context, but we can have a separate discussion on that if you reach out to us, please. Yeah. What are the prerequisites or mandatory requirements for using this AI tool for a customer, like use of Wrench EDMS, etc.? Yeah. So I did mention it's our AI is not able to live in isolation. It has been built as a capability add-on on Wrench EDMS. We are able to integrate Wrench EDMS with other document management systems. If the enterprise as a corporate might be using other EDMSs, and you want to integrate only a certain project or a certain part of the business line, we've done such implementations as well. So AI to operate, it does require Wrench EDMS because that's where all the relationship definitions and all being built. Yeah. What if we have multiple clients, each following a different standard? That's not a problem because if you have multiple clients, they would be on multiple projects, and the context grounding would allow for each client's requirements to be identified and relationship mapped separately. Yeah. Will Wrench AI adapt to it? Yes. And it will be able to identify and map it separately because we spoke about earlier as well as very project-specific contextual grounding that enables us to present the capabilities as we've seen here. Yeah. So the second last question for today, what if we have multiple clients? We've already answered that one. Thank you for the presentation. May I ask the presentation slides or reference material will be shared with the participants? Absolutely. Our marketing team will share the slide deck that we have reviewed today. And like I mentioned, thank you very much for your patience. We did have a technical glitch. We lost a little bit of time, so we've kept it open. Thank you all for your participation and very active questions. And do feel free to reach out to us if you have any further clarifications and engagements if you need to take up, please. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Appreciate.